Thank you so much, John, for this very flattering and humbling introduction, and for Fertile Foundation, the National Institute, and all partners for the privilege of joining you and joining the Right Now family. It's a dream that exceeds my dreams. I want also to thank two strong NGOs, the Government Accountability Project and Crisis Action. Without their full support, my voice would not have been heard beyond the diplomatic circles in New York. Today, I receive this honor with deep gratitude and sincere humility, and I wish in turn to share it with all UN whistleblowers. These truth tellers often have to sacrifice their well-being to serve the public good and speak truth to power in the same spirit of Right Now. I want to acknowledge one particular whistleblower, Dr. Mukesh Kapila, without whom the world may have never heard of Darfur. He was the top UN official in Sudan in 2003 and 2004 when he broke the conspiracy of silence over Darfur. He alerted the press to unspeakable crimes. His testimony drew the world's attention to mass atrocities in Darfur. This led to unprecedented levels of popular support for the region, compelling the UN Security Council to act. Unfortunately, every single action undertaken by the Security Council was tainted by inaction. It amounted to little more than what President Obama once described as the UN's hocus pocus. This includes the UN's alliance with the African Union organization. Together, they deployed UNAMID, the African Union United Nations mission in Darfur. UNAMID was set up as a peacekeeping force without peace to keep, without the necessary force to use, and without a clear mandate to fight the government forces. But what the mission lacked more or most was the willingness to tell the truth about the government's war on the civilians under its care and on its own troops. So when accepted to serve as the spokesperson for this peacekeeping mission, little did I know what I was getting into. I had religiously read UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's reports, which spoke of the promising Doha peace agreement, the massive return of refugees, and the improvement of security situation. Like many people, I sincerely believed him. I believed that the war was over, and I believed that the worst was far behind the people of Darfur. I was wrong. But soon after I set foot in Darfur, I started receiving internal reports that were telling a different story. They were painting a picture of a raging war that spared no ethnic group, no tribe, no one. A war that had expanded and spilled over into neighboring Nuba Mountains. The reports indicated that the Sudanese regime had clearly embarked on a second phase of its ethnic cleansing campaign, targeting the Zaghawa population this time around. Its weapons of mass destruction were still the infamous Janjaweed militias, but they became much deadlier. Despite a UN Security Council resolution demanding that Sudan disarm the Janjaweed, the government had integrated them into these death squads into its army, provided them with heavier weapons, and an absolute immunity to kill, rape, loot, and burn everything to the ground. And that's what they were doing in Darfur while I was there. The internal reports I was receiving described the intensified bombing of civilians, mass and systematic rape, scorched earth campaign, and many other crimes predominantly committed by the government forces. They also included deliberate attacks on African peacekeepers. But most of this information wasn't making it to Ban Ki-moon reports, keeping the council members, the media, and the public in the dark. Week after week, I pushed the mission leadership hard to answer the media's questions and to report the truth about Darfur, but I failed. After 8 months, I reached the conclusion that a deliberate and a major cover-up was taking place. I resigned, alerted the UN Peacekeeping Department, and asked for an investigation, which the UN refused and still refuse to undertake. Silence was never an option. It simply meant complicity in crimes against humanity. This is how I became a whistleblower. With the great help of Foreign Policy's senior diplomatic reporter Colm Lynch, Colm's outstanding reports made waves at the UN and beyond, which ultimately admitted that the mission concealed critical information and evidence showing the responsibility of government forces for the attacks on blue helmets and civilians, including the massacre of up to 100 women, men, and children in Hashaba. Despite this, the full scope of the cover-up has yet to be revealed, and no independent investigation has taken place again. However, I want to acknowledge that recently the UN has been trying to improve its reporting in Darfur. I confirm that the region is now seeing the highest levels of violence and displacement since the start of the war 11 years ago. It started naming and shaming the crimes committed by the government forces, including the bombing of civilians. And as expected, Khartoum is raging about the increased attention Darfur is getting these days, because it simply wants the entire mission out of the country and now. The regime is demanding that 15,000 peacekeepers serving in Darfur leave the country at least by the end of this year. The struggle within the council is at its height. Russia and China are backing Khartoum's demand, while the United States, Britain, and France seem to oppose it. They are in a rock and hard place. But if they surrender to Khartoum's orders, then the worst might still lie ahead for civilians in Darfur. For despite being disempowered, outgunned, and sometimes ill-trained, these peacekeepers have been saving lives in Darfur by simply having their bases near local villages and towns. They have de facto become a safe zone. For years, defenseless civilians have been rushing to these safe areas whenever they came under attack. They are now wondering where they can run for safety if UNAMID leaves. And if the UN goes, it is only a matter of time before the humanitarian organizations who are feeding and housing more than 2.5 million of displaced people in Darfur will have to follow suit. Without military backup, they clearly cannot risk the lives of the humanitarian workers. So I refuse to think of this worst case scenario because I strongly believe that it's not too late to stand up to the Sudanese regime and demand that it stop its attacks on unarmed people as well on peacekeepers, keep the peacekeepers on the ground and move them closer to the population under attack. But these measures are, of course, only a band-aid. The real medicine is a genuine peace in Darfur and the rest of Sudan. I believe there is still hope There's hope because the people of Sudan have decided it's not only therefore that they need to save, but it's only the Nuba Mountains, Blue Nile, Eastern Sudan, and Khartoum. It is the entire country they want to save from decades of destruction inflicted on them by an illegitimate regime. Women and youth organizations are leading the way, and they seem committed to a soft and peaceful transition to democracy and peace. There is hope also because the very fact that we're here today means that Darfur and Sudan are not a lost cause. They do matter because Black lives matter in Africa too. Thank you.